we are going to be uploading our book to IngramSpark. So if you're doing this, feel free to follow along whenever you upload a book. That way you know there are no worries when self-publishing your new title. So let's go ahead and scroll down. I am on our titles page right here, and I am at the bottom where it says upload a title. Now, there is also a little button at the top, but this is a little bit more visually appealing and easier not to miss. So I am going to be focusing on just a print book only. So the methodology is the same, whether you want to do a print and ebook or just an ebook or just a print book, but for this example, let's use a print book. Now, the first question it is going to ask you is, do you have your files ready to upload? And I highly recommend you have your cover done as well as your interior files. And yes, those are going to be two separate files that you will need to upload. So I have those done, so I am going to go ahead and say yes. Now there are creation options on IngramSpark, but I would recommend creating them yourself. But again, if you do want to use their creation platform, that is available to you. So again, it is having you verify that you have your PDF of your print cover and a PDF of your print interior. So next, it's going to ask us, what do we want to do with this title? Do we want to print, distribute, and sell our book, or do we only want to print the book? Now, this is key for those authors who have reached out to me in the past and say, I just want to purchase my own books, but I don't want IngramSpark to sell it anywhere. I want to sell it myself at markets and bookstores locally, but I want to be in charge of having my own book on hand to give out. Then what you can do is only do the print book, or if you're somebody who's doing a hobby book that you don't want to sell but you want for yourself, this is going to be the way to go. However, if you're an author and you want your work to be available to the world, then you want to go ahead and click that you want your book printed, distributed, and available for sale. Now, that's not going to immediately make it available for sale, so don't worry. If you click this, it is not immediately going up for sale. You will have time to check with eProof, so it is okay to press this button now. Now, can you change your mind at any point? Absolutely. You can always reach out to IngramSpark customer support and change your distribution. There's books I've pulled from distribution. There's books I've put back on the market and taken off again. So ultimately, you are able to change this, but you do want to pick what you want now because changing it can be a little complicated with IngramSpark. Next, we are going to see this bar up top here. This is going to let us know where we are at in uploading our book. So I can see that we have a long way to go, but not to worry. What I am doing for this book is I'm actually republishing Save the Ocean hardcover with IngramSpark's new ultra premium color. They've recently made an update to where they have new color for children's books, and I am now recommending that you go ahead and upgrade to the new ultra premium color with IngramSpark because it gives you the best possible outcome for your book. So my title is Save the Ocean. The language is in English. Now, if you have published in a different language or a translated version, make sure you choose that language here. And then the print ISBN. Now, I do recommend that you purchase your ISBNs from Bowker. This gives you the most freedom over your ISBNs. So if you ever want to take that book and publish it elsewhere, you are able to do so. It will also register your publishing company's name as the publisher instead of saying it's published by IngramSpark. So there are those little things that I personally like using my own ISBN for. However, if you do not want to purchase an ISBN, you can use the free ISBN. However, just know that that ISBN can never be transferred away from IngramSpark. So if you do decide to print your hardcover or softcover or whatever you are publishing on IngramSpark elsewhere, you will need a new ISBN at that point. For some people, this doesn't matter. For others, it does. Ultimately, this is a personal choice. But again, I personally do buy my ISBNs through Bowker. I recommend at minimum the 10-pack and at best the 100-pack if you're an author like me who just publishes nonstop. And that is the best way to go because my ISBN has changed over time and time again as I've had to republish or update different interior color or page paper types. So ultimately you will maybe go through a few ISBNs per book. Next, it's going to ask you about the publishing rights. So do you own the copyright or hold necessary publishing rights, or are you publishing a public domain work? It has a little bit of an explanation here if you want to click and read that, but ultimately, if this is your own work, you likely own the copyright. Now, do you need to file for a copyright additionally at this point? You don't. You actually don't have to file for an official copyright through the government at all. So if you're publishing in the US, you do have the option to additionally file for copyright. I do have tutorials on that on Patreon. However, it's not necessary, but it is something I recommend, and I do have a pretty little paper for every single book I publish that states that I own the copyright, and it has absolutely come in handy when I've been in legal battles over people trying to steal my work. Again, this is going to walk you through making sure that you're not including famous companies, names, or brands without licensing, that you're not using any trademarks, pictures, or names of famous brands or toys without the licensing rights. And it's making sure that the pictures are all yours and your own, that you didn't take them from the web without a license, that nothing in here is taken from anybody else. And in this world where we have information so easily accessible, I know it's easy to perhaps have taken somebody else's work and not obtain permission, but you do absolutely need to purchase licensing rights to any fonts that you're using or any images that you're using that are not your own or free to use. And if you are looking for that copyright link right here, that's actually where you can file for your official copyright if you'd like to. And again, that is something I do recommend, just in case you get people out there trying to take your work, and trust me, it happens. Now, if we click this little box, it's easy to miss. We can see some additional information. So does the book have a subtitle? You're welcome to put that in there. Does it have a series name? Mine does. Mine is a part of the Save the Earth series, and it's number 1 in the series. And then I am not doing an edition name or edition number, but I can go ahead and leave those blank because those don't pertain to me. Now, if this does pertain to your book, go ahead and add this in here. The more information you can give about your book, the better optimized your book is. So always try to give as much information that is applicable. Now, authors and contributors. I am the author, so I'm going to go ahead and put in my information. Now, I don't use my middle name or initials, so I'm going to leave that blank, but some authors do. And fun fact, authors who have initials as their name or have a middle initial actually are seen as more intelligible in the publishing industry. So that's actually really interesting if you're thinking about using a pen name, that people really do seem to enjoy names that imply a certain set of prestige to them. So that's really interesting. Now down here, we can fill out some more information. I personally like to keep myself a little bit private, so I can fill out my country, but I'm not going to fill out my state or city. I also move quite a bit. I am somebody who loves traveling and cannot stay sedentary, so I never like to fill out where specifically I am because it gets messy. So I can also add my biography in here and any other prior work or affiliations. Now, this is going to be really key if you are publishing, say, a psychology book and you are a member of a psychology guild or something of that sort. So that would be really great to add in here. I'm just going to go ahead and copy and paste my author bio and throw that in here. And then in terms of prior work, Save the Ocean was actually the first of my Save the Earth series, so I don't necessarily have prior work to list, but I can do that for other books in my series if I'd like. And again, the more information you can throw in here, the better optimized your book is going to be. A question I often get about biographies is, should you write them in third person? And yes, you absolutely always want to write your biography in third person. Ultimately, it sounds way better and you look way cooler if you talk about yourself in third person, but don't brag about yourself in first person. It will read unprofessional and a little bit braggish. So definitely write in third person. It is industry standard to write it that way. Now down here, you will see a button for adding a contributor. If you had an additional illustrator, please add them, or editors, add them if required. So typically in your contracts, you will say if it's required to be on there or not. Save the Ocean went through the hands, I think, of 3 or 4 editors. None of them required that they need to be listed on the book, and honestly, I don't list them only because I think it looks a little messy when there's like 15 names after a book of everybody who's worked on Save the Ocean throughout the years. It's been through rounds of editing, even in more recent times, just to make sure my book is up to date and just in case I need to make any little tweaks or changes. So you are welcome to add those in, but again, if you are not contractually obligated, you don't have to. This is ultimately up to you. So here you can go ahead and see other things that you are allowed to add in. So I'm just going to scroll down to Illustrator, and then I can also give myself credit for that. All right, now we're going to categorize our title. The imprint is going to be the name of your publishing company. Now, this is something that you need to add into IngramSpark. And if you are using your own ISBN, you can add in different imprints. I have different imprints because I publish under multiple names. I have an imprint that is Bethany Stahl, which is the name of Bethany Stahl's publishing company. So the author of Bethany Stahl, that brand, her business is also called Bethany Stahl. So I ended up naming my publishing companies after the author only because I think it is confusing for taxes for them to have to understand that I'm a business of one person. So I ended up naming my businesses after the author just to keep things clear. But that's something that's regional here for me, that I noticed that my current city and county are a little bit more confused when it comes to self-publishing and business in general. So I definitely tried to make that easier for them on the legal standpoint. But again, your publishing company can be named whatever you would like. Now here we want to select the subjects that are most applicable to our book. So I can search up here for maybe environmentalism. And that will bring up all the books on environment. Now, I don't want to click all of these because those don't apply. I definitely want juvenile fiction. My book is fiction and not nonfiction because I have talking animals, which is not real. So my book, even though it talks about real topics, would technically fall under fiction because I have mermaids and talking animals and fun things like that to help tell the story. So it would fall under fiction. So I'm just going to click it and you can see it would be highlighted there. And none of these other ones apply, so I'm just going to go ahead and click Add Subject. Now, I can also browse by scrolling down here and looking in juvenile fiction and trying to read these categories and see if anything stands out to me. So here, marine life is definitely what Save the Ocean is about, so I can select that one. And here we can see that there's some other nature ones that I can look at as well. So I have added my 3 subjects. You can only have a maximum of 3, so make sure you choose wisely. And also, if you end up trying to choose, for example, I choose a juvenile fiction topic and a juvenile nonfiction topic, you might get some sort of an error. That has happened on KDP and IngramSpark, so they want you to keep your book in the same general category. So if I'm saying, oh, it's juvenile fiction, I can't also say it's also young adult fiction. So you kind of have to stay within your general category and then choose the best out of under that. Here you can choose your audience. Mine is going to be juvenile, which is 0 to 12. I know it's easy to pick elementary or high school if you're writing children's books, but that falls under textbook. So make sure you are choosing juvenile if you are picking a book that is not a textbook that is for a younger audience. Here you can put in your age range. Age range is really important to show your book to the right audience. A lot of people are going to be searching by age range, so this is very important. I know based off of my books that I can look for an age range about 0 to 8 is where I see the most fun coming in for my Save the Earth book. And the grade range is typically K through 3. Now, I generally see first grade with the best attention for my books. However, my books have been taught in schools from kindergarten all the way up to 10th and 11th grade. They've used them as examples. So I find that really incredible that even picture books can be used in relevant high school situations, which is super cool. But I'm not going to put it's up to high school just because that was a very extraneous circumstance to where a high school did end up using my book. but I am going to put in generalizations. And even though you can be like, oh, well, anybody can enjoy this from 0 to 99, like you want to try to narrow that down the best you can to where your main audience is sitting. And for me, that's about 0 to 8, K through 3. Now down here is so many more things that we can add. Yay, work. Okay, so regional subject. Now regional subjects are going to be if your book is based in any sort of geographical location. Since my book happens in the ocean, it's not necessarily tied to a geographical location, so I wouldn't have a regional subject. Thema subjects are used by retailers, bookstores, libraries that are really similar to BISAC codes or BISAC codes that these subjects fall under. So these would be your BISAC codes. But what we want to do is also find thema subjects. So it's really tempting for me to click on this one, but I also see children's, teenage, and educational. So I want to stick to children's. So here we have picture books, which falls under. So I want to definitely keep going under these children's books. Now, qualifiers are going to be, again, more specific tags. So if it's about a place, a language, anything of that sort. So I've went ahead and selected for preschool learning for primary education. So you can do the interest age. I'm just going to go ahead and put in through 5 years because that's closer to my target. Now it's going to ask you for a table of contents. I don't have this for a children's book, but you may have this for your book. Please go ahead and put that in there if it applies. If not, skip it. And then review quotes. So any quotes you've received from early reviewers, anybody notable in the industry, anything like that, literary magazines, awards, anything of that would go in here that you want people to brag about. I have a list, so I'm going to go ahead and paste in all of those quotes because that really helps give a lot of validation behind my book. So I will say one of the coolest things I found out after I became an author is that random blogs and websites will talk about your book. And that happened a lot with Save the Ocean, and they didn't tell me they were talking so much cool things about it. So occasionally I will go ahead and Google myself and see if there's any new news or articles that I can see have popped up talking about my books, because oftentimes there are. And you can also set Google alerts. That way you can be notified anytime anybody talks about you, which is great. And I definitely have on because as I have progressed in my author career, I just don't have time to stalk myself at all hours of the day. Now here it wants the full description of your book, so craft that description and throw it on in here. Now if you need help writing your book description, don't worry, there's going to be a video on that if it's not already on my channel. So make sure you subscribe and like this video and stay tuned because I post all things about self-publishing. That way, if you encounter something like this where you feel stuck, hopefully I'll be able to help you out and keep you moving so you can enjoy becoming an author and having fun in the self-publishing world. Now that it is in there, I need to list my keywords. Now you separate these keywords with semicolons, which is so different than every other platform, so don't make a mistake and not use a semicolon. So keywords are going to be anything that people are looking up to find your book. For example, for my book, it is about saving the ocean, recycling, being environmentally conscious. So for that, I can write kids' books about recycling because that might be something somebody is looking up. I can also do recycling. So it is really broad of what you can do. One of the best forms of advice I have for doing something like this is just thinking about what you would type into Google to find your book. If you are a reader and you're looking for a book, what are you going to type in? And sometimes that's out of order. Sometimes I'll do recycling book for kids. And that's completely different than kids' books about recycling. So think about all the ways that you might type it in. Sometimes I might do book about ocean, book about recycling. So things of that sort. Brainstorm, write down as many as you can, and if you have friends and family who are willing to help you out, ask them, hey, if you were looking for my book, what would you type into Google? And have them generate some ideas for you. There are also a lot of keyword tools out on the market that you can pay for that will generate keywords for you. Honestly, you don't need this. I would just recommend using Google or even Amazon search to see if you can type in some keywords and see what kind of books come up and see if that's something that's relevant to you. Okay, so that can't exceed over 500 bytes, so go until you hit that. Honestly, I would just recommend jam packing as many keywords as you can in, and they recommend no less than 7. If you open this up, you can see there's a short description for your book, which I recommend just taking a little bit of a synopsis and put in a short description. And once you're done, go ahead and continue. Woohoo! We are moving on. Now we want to select our trim size. There is so many to choose from. What I have for my children's book series is 8.5 by 8.5. You do not have to do this. This just happened to be the size I liked the best when I first started publishing, and there wasn't a lot of sizes available at that time. This is one of the few. So that is something I've stuck with throughout my series. I know a lot of other authors do use this size, but again, you can do whatever you would like. I would pick a standard children's book size, so go to a library, check out what sizes they are, and pick your favorite and move on from there. You may also have to pick your trim size based on what your illustrations were done as. So I illustrate in 8.5 by 8.5, so I have to pick that, but maybe you had your illustrations done a different way. So hopefully you have this in mind before we get to this point. Now, we have all these options for color, but we want to go back to the beginning and click this ultra premium color. This is actually printed with toner instead of inkjet on paper. It has less lines in it, and it looks very similar to how KDP books print, which is a clear, clean, somewhat saturated plus a little bit of a glossy feeling, but it's not actually glossy paper. But ultimately, this is what you want to choose if you're doing a children's book. My binding is a hardcover, or a hardback as they call it, so that's what I'm choosing. Again, this is up to you. If you want to also do a paperback, you can't click both. You have to make another upload of this for your paperback. So I'm going to do a case laminate. And my book is glossy for my children's books. I find that it's easy to wipe off these books if children have nasty little messy hands. So I do the gloss, but matte is so nice and it is very soft, and I absolutely love matte, but I typically will go for gloss for children's books and then matte for any adult or teen books. Now my page count is 32. And then the market is in the US. So this is telling me how much the print cost is per book. That is not what the customer pays. That is how much you have to pay per book to get it printed. IngramSpark's prices are a little bit high, and by a little bit I mean severely, so this does suck. But if you are looking for a print on demand platform that does push out books, this is going to be one of your best options in terms of distribution for print on demand. Of course, there are much better options if you aren't looking for print on demand, but IngramSpark is still holding on to the title of king when it comes to paperback print on demand for a low cost, because believe it or not, there are other places that charge even more than this. Now we want to do our retail price. This is something that is difficult because IngramSpark costs so much that your prices do have to be on the higher end to be able to compensate and actually get compensation for your work, which you do want to get paid. This is something that takes a long time, that you invest money in, that you have to get paid back for. So don't feel bad about charging a fair price. Also check out other books on the market and make sure yours are in the range of them. Right now, I have my children's book at $25 for my hardcovers, but that is something that I would not want to push any higher because I don't feel comfortable with a price point above $25, but also the economy keeps changing, so we have to keep in mind that prices of things are going up and down, so we want to be right in a place where we don't have to be messing with this all the time. Now the wholesale discount, they have recently updated this to where you can't choose lower than 40. Retailers, they say, prefer 55. I have had bookstores order my books with a discount of 35% when they allowed that, and I have them order it at a discount of 55%. Ultimately here, you want to put in what you are most comfortable with. Like I said, I've had bookstores order either way. So while that's the retailer preference, that does not mean they won't buy your book if it's not that. So I am just going to go ahead and put mine in at the bare minimum. That way I can get the most compensation per book out of it. Again, there's so much investment of time and money into this. We have to make sure we are getting paid for all those hours spent creating this book. Save the Ocean is a book I wrote in 2018, and I am still putting in work on this book with republishing it and doing all these things for it. So this is something that I don't want you to feel bad about charging for. I, in the beginning of my career, hated the fact that I had to make money, and ultimately, you have to allow yourself to be paid for your time, because the time we spend investing in our books never really ends. I will be working on Save the Ocean from 5 years from now, working on advertising and all of that, and your compensation needs to pay you for all that extended time that you are working on your book. So you do have to put this in individually for all the others, but as you've seen, the retail price went ahead and populated by itself, which is so nice because you don't have to sit here and do the conversions like you used to way back in the day. Shout out to all the old authors on here like me who had to sit here and convert all of these. Oh my gosh, what a migraine. But here we want to say, yes, we understand that less than a 55% discount can limit the likelihood that bookstores in some markets will purchase my title. Listen, I think this is like a bullying statement to where they're like, you really want to discount it more. But again, you don't have to. And I can go ahead and discount it more. But you can see that that takes my compensation down to 55 cents a book. And I don't know about you, but that just doesn't make sense to me. I have put in way too much work of this book to get paid 55 cents a book. I also understand that selecting destroy means I cannot have the title returned to Ingram and I won't receive a physical copy. My account will be charged the current wholesale cost of each copy returned, but no shipping and handling fees will apply. Now, this is the worst part about IngramSpark for indie authors. The worst parts. And I want you to be aware of how detrimental this can be. What this means is, can bookstores return your book? Here with IngramSpark, they are distributing it to bookstores, libraries, and major retailers. So this is if those people, let's say a bookstore can order your book. I bought 50 copies and then I decide, I don't want these, and I send them straight back. Whatever the bookstore purchased, you have to pay that wholesale cost for, which means you are going to be in a deficit. I have personally known authors who have gone bankrupt for allowing this. So be aware that this is a thing. I have had my returns on Yes Destroy before, and the average amount of returns I get a year were about 5 when I'm selling hundreds and hundreds of books a year. So it was less than 0.01% that was being returned. So for me, it wasn't a big deal, but honestly, I kept hearing horror stories from friends who are authors who had books ordered and then just kept getting returned. And some of them were in severe deficits to where it was absolutely detrimental to their career. And I don't need to have that happen to me to learn my lesson, so I now do not allow returns. This means that bookstores may be less likely to stock my book because they want that ability to where if they buy 50 of my book, they want the ability to send that back if they can't end up selling all the product they ordered. My personal thoughts are, don't order what you can't sell. So I know this hurts in the long run because you are not making your book as favorable to stores. However, you are also protecting your financial assets by saying, no, you can't do that. I am not going to pay for your mistakes. And ultimately, I have decided for me that it is better for me to say, no, I'm not paying for your mistakes versus a bookstore to return copies. Now, I ultimately decided this because I had an order on here that showed I had 3,000 book sales in one day. And I kid you not, I ended up vomiting for about 3 weeks because I was so scared that a bookstore had ordered that amount of books by accident and was going to return them. And if I had to pay the wholesale cost for 3,000 books, yes, my career would be well over and I would have to go out and get a job immediately to start paying that back. So after I had a sale that large and I started seeing rapidly large numbers growing in my account, I realized that I was not willing to take a risk on having 3,000 books returned. And that is something that I highly recommend you all think about. And ultimately, this is up to you. I can't tell you what's the right or wrong choice here, but this is my way of thinking and what I do. Now, there is also an option that says yes, deliver. If you are somebody who wants to take returns, what you can do is also pay shipping and handling, and then IngramSpark will return that book to you. So any returned books you will get back. I do have a video about the condition I have received one of the returns back in, and they are not sellable. So I never, under any circumstance, recommend having them delivered to you because the books can come back utterly destroyed. So you can't even have that mindset of, oh, well, if they deliver them back to me, maybe I can sell them at a market I'm doing, or maybe I can sell them to local retailers. So no, those books can come back in awful condition. And again, you are paying not only the wholesale cost for those, but you are also paying shipping and handling. Again, digging into that hole of what you owe IngramSpark and not getting any money back, because the people who are returning it, they got their money back, so you don't get any of it. So again, I am a firm no as of this time, but ultimately that can change. So I need to accept this. And then I also have to accept that the automatic currency conversion reflects the pricing I entered today, but will not automatically update if the currency type changes. So let's say that all of a sudden the euro goes way up in cost or way down in cost, and their price of the dollar is fluctuating. It's not going to matter for this because this is not going to change. It is based off of the price conversions to the dollar today. So that is where we are at. And honestly, as long as I'm getting compensated, I don't really care about the nitty gritty of if it's $1 more or $1 less or anything of that sort. So I'm okay with today's rates being locked in for that. Now, I can enable a look inside the book. I absolutely do recommend this. I think it's good for people to look inside of the book. And honestly, once you publish, there's people who are going to be sharing the insides of your book anyway, so you might as well be the one allowing them to look. Large text means if you are using specific large text considerations and size. I do use a large text for my children's book, but it doesn't fall under a large text edition of a book, so I'm going to leave that unchecked. And then right to left content, I've gotten asked about this before. If you have right to left content, just go ahead and check that box, and then please read this. But if you are not creating right to left content, just go ahead and ignore that. Now, this is going to be the publication date. This is a little confusing because since I published this book in 2018, I am going to have to go back in time to the original publication date. I'm so confused. I said this book came out in 2018 and came out in 2019. I started publishing in 2018. Oh my goodness, this is what happens when you have too many kids. Now, this is the on sale date. What this means is when you want your book to be able to be purchased. Now, I want my book to be on sale immediately, so today is October 12th, so I'm going to put today. So the publication date is the day you want your book to release. So let's say I want to go ahead and release my book next February. What I can do is the on sale date, if I want that to be pre-orders to where they order the book but it doesn't ship until my publication date, I want to put in the same date as my publication date. But if I want to say the official publish date is going to be February 2024, but I want it to start shipping and going out to people now, then I would put the on sale date as today, but the publication date in the future. I wouldn't recommend that. I've accidentally done that before because I got this all backwards, so I wouldn't recommend doing that. I would recommend for pre-orders, go ahead and put the date you want it to publish, and the on sale date is the date you also want it to publish and start shipping to people. Sometimes you can put this a few days before if you want to ensure that the books arrive on the publication day, which is kind of cool. Now we are to the dreaded uploading of your files. I'm just kidding. It is not that big of a deal, but this screen scares everybody, and it's okay if it scares you too. This is a stressful process, but I'm here with you. We're doing this together. We got this. We can do this. So let's go ahead and upload our interior and our cover. Again, I have mentioned these are separate files. Your interior file should not include your cover on any of the pages. Now, if you need a template for these, I do offer one on patreon.com/BethanyStull. You don't have to be a member to get it. It is available under the shop tab, but if you are a member, you get it for free. So that is something that you can use to do this. For the print cover, IngramSpark does have a way you can download and generate a cover. I will make a separate video for that is already available and will be updated on my YouTube channel. So go ahead and check that out if you need help downloading your cover, but you don't need anybody's template for this. IngramSpark will make it for you. So I would highly recommend using what they give you to create your cover. Now I am going to upload the PDF versions of my files. Be aware that at this point they may give you an error. If they give you an error, they will explain explicitly what was wrong with your file and what needs to be corrected. You can opt to move forward with the errors if you believe that your document is correct, and sometimes you do have to do this. Just always get a proof of your work to verify that everything is correct. I know a lot of people get color errors at this stage and not have color errors, so just be aware, fix what you can, and if not, move through and verify with a proof. Okay, so it's been a few days, and you can either follow the link from the email that IngramSpark will send you, or if you go into your account, you should see that there's a title awaiting your review, and you can click on that button. I've went ahead and clicked on the link in my email just so it was a direct way to get here, and I didn't have to take any extra steps. But there's 2 ways you can go about doing that, so don't be worried if you lose the email or the link inside. What I have here is a green button that says download the proof. Now this is going to be an electronic proof, and this proof isn't going to be exactly how the print copy looks, but this is a good way to just make sure that all your spelling's correct, there's no pages out of order, just the basic look over to make sure everything is indeed as you submitted it. There's no weird things in there. And this isn't a replacement for a printed proof. I always recommend getting printed proofs. That being said, sometimes you will encounter a printer error on your first printed proof to where I've had books from IngramSpark come with bigger margins of white space, some that are printed perfectly. It really depends on the printer. Most of the time, they are printed pretty well, but there are times that you may encounter that their printer had an error and maybe the quality assurance wasn't there on their end. So if you do get a book and you formatted it perfectly and it just doesn't look right or there's something off about it, I do recommend ordering another one just to cross compare. And then if there is still a problem, you can move from there to try and fix it. So here, I'm just going to go ahead and make this big for you all. Here we can see that I have my book cover. And actually, this is really a good example of strangeness that occurs in these printed proofs. If I'm back this far, you see these weird white lines. And as I zoom in, they changed, right? So back here, there's some here, but as I zoom in, they are changing or disappearing completely. So it is a little strange like that. You may have these weird things to where there should be no reason why there's a line here. And in fact, you can see that it starts on this side, then it's gone here. Essentially, these lines actually aren't there. This is just a weird error on their part. And if you get it printed, you won't see those lines there. This is what I'm talking about, how this eProof can be a good idea to just make sure we're in the lines and that everything looks okay, but you really need to get a printed copy to just make sure, just because sometimes these eProofs have just these weird artifacts in them, and I can't really explain why. Like, I zoomed in and now that one's pretty much gone. So that just means it's not there, because if you look at something like my name, as I zoom in and out, that looks the same always. So that's how we know these lines are fake. So I am just going to scroll through this. And again, yeah, there's these weird lines here too. I've actually never seen this before with IngramSpark, but you know, they're a little bit funny. They have some issues, more so than I think other print on demand, with just like these weirdness every now and then. A lot of times, I know a lot of people get flustered using IngramSpark. A lot of times, these little errors are no big deal. You just got to move past them. It's just some weird glitch within the system. So I'm going to scroll through this and just make sure everything is a-okay. Okay, so this looks perfect and good to go. So I'm just going to go ahead and close this. Now, I do already have a printed copy of this version, so we're going to pretend like I just got a printed copy and I verified it. Again, please get a printed copy. So what I'm going to do is say that I approve this for printing, distribution, and sale from orders placed by my account or other retailers. What this means is that it is officially for sale by everyone. IngramSpark is going to send it out to distributors. So they are a distribution service. What this means is they are kind of like a warehouse that is sending these books to places like Target or Walmart or Amazon or Barnes and Noble. So they are a printing facility and warehouse. They did not previously have a way to purchase a book directly. However, I am in a beta for IngramSpark. It didn't say I couldn't talk about it, so I'm going to talk about it. And it is allowing for links that you can give somebody directly to purchase from IngramSpark directly, which was never the case before. And I know so many of you have asked for. So I'm actually really happy to hear this coming from IngramSpark. Again, they are absolutely making changes always to how this works to improve the system, which is a really good thing that we want to see from the company. Now, if I want to print this book just for me, and a lot of you are in this boat and have talked to me about this, you just want to make a book for you or for your grandchildren or for your kids or your school or whoever, but you don't want to sell it. This is going to be the option you choose. You want it available for printing, placed by your account only. That means it's not going to be available for sale everywhere. It's just for you, and you can order as many as you want. I've also talked to authors who really enjoy selling only in person at shows, but they don't want it online. If this is you, this is going to be the option you choose. So this is only for you. But if you want it out there, you want the whole world to have it, you go ahead and click this one. Now, let's say you got the printed proof or your eProof is just very messed up. Something went wrong in the process and you've got to fix it. What you want to do is either say that you have revised content to upload, or you're going to reject the proof and request further review. If you have a big issue, you know that it's not your fault or something is wrong with IngramSpark on their end, this is where you would talk to them about that. Otherwise, if you see anything wrong, you don't need to tell them about it. If I spelled a word wrong or if I formatted my book wrong, I don't need to bother IngramSpark with this. I'm just going to go ahead and fix my errors and go ahead and upload new content. So if you have any questions about anything in this process, I do have a Patreon page where I work one-on-one with you. You have access to private message me, and I am very, very excited to help you on this journey. I also have other tiers that are for other options if you want various levels of help. So definitely check that out if you're looking for a little bit more with your authorship journey. So I love this. My proof came out great. Everything is good to go. So I'm just going to scroll down here and press continue. This is going to ask if I want to promote my title. Now, I will be completely honest, I have never actually tested this out. However, I have heard from some very good author friends that they did not like this service in the past, which is why I haven't tried it. I personally cannot say if I recommend or do not recommend this. However, I've never had an issue with selling books on IngramSpark. They have always come in really well, and I've actually had quite a few orders. IngramSpark, even a few years ago, was my heavy carrier of a majority of my sales. So it is really dependent on you and other ways you advertise. So this option is completely up to you, but for the sake of this video, I'm going to go ahead and say no, I'm not interested. If you guys would like me to test that out in the future, please let me know, and I'm happy to do so. Now it's going to bring you to this page where it says your order has been submitted for processing. Don't worry, you haven't bought anything. All this is saying is that your submission is now processing. What they're going to do is make sure everything's okay again on their end, and then they will send you an email when it is ready. Once it is ready, if you go over here to titles, you will see your book. Once you go to your title screen, you can see if it is enabled for global distribution by looking at this blue world right here. If it is blue, that means it is enabled. But if it's gray like this one, that means it's not enabled for global distribution. This is a really easy visual way to keep track of if your book is available or not. I love this, and I've always really heavily relied on this little icon with IngramSpark to make sure everything is okay. But as that happens, your little title will change to available. So this is my book. It is available for printing. I am so excited. And if you don't immediately see it on Amazon or Walmart or Target or wherever you're hoping to see your book, give it a few days because it needs time to integrate with the system. So sometimes I have seen it take only 24 hours. Other times I have seen it take up to like a week in business days. So if you don't see it within a reasonable amount of time, so about, 5 to 10 business days, I would say reach out and ask IngramSpark what's going on. But otherwise, just give it some time to catch up with the algorithm and to start showing up on those sites. And when you are searching for your book on those sites, make sure you are as specific as possible, such as typing in the book's title and your name. Sometimes we can get buried in so many other books or products, especially if it is a brand new book. It might not come up right away. So make sure you do your due diligence in searching to make sure your book is actually there or not. I hope this video has helped. And again, if you are looking for more help, please go over and check out my Patreon page. I have some different goodies you can purchase over there, as well as the membership, which gives you access to a huge archive of information, videos that are no longer available on YouTube, or even private videos that are Patreon exclusive. And you are always able to message me and get some one-on-one help because YouTube comments have been wonderful lately and so busy. And while I try to answer as many comments as I can, sometimes it gets a little busy, and my patrons always are first priority in my book. So I really appreciate the support. I hope you love this, and congratulations on publishing. Go ahead and comment below. Which book are you publishing? Tell us all about it. Share your excitement because I always love to see all the books you guys are putting out there. There is so much room for authorship, and I love supporting other indie authors. So tell me what your book's about below, and let's celebrate each other's success. I will see you all next time. Happy publishing.